Greenlight Network presents
Hey, and welcome to the College Football Time Show. It's week 11 of the college football season. Week 10 certainly sort of spit out the non-contenders a little bit here in the college football season. So we got another week. The Big 12 is beginning its semi-playoff here in the next couple weeks. So with us, as always, is Dynamite David. Another tough week. Both losers on the week last week, but you went down. This is the good thing about being low budget. When you lose a lot of games, you don't lose quite as much money. So you only lost $632, which is a pittance of basically what we've been losing week to week. So there's always that to look onto the bright side.
I'm waiting for you to compile the stat of how much money someone would make if they just bet opposite of me.
I think
all year long.
Instead of us having our Tolkien Bowl Pick'em show where we both go, well, none of these teams are going to try. We probably will just go over the stats and our preseason prop bets to have a little bit of fun so we can look at what people would have done if they had just gone against you all year long, or just see what team has cost you the most money, which is probably what I'm more curious.
Probably North Carolina
about. So you lost 960, you won 327.27. 632 is a net loss, so $11,537. I am confident you're going to make it through the end of the year here without blowing the remaining 11 grand.
Last week are all max unit plays, all or nothing.
Well, I don't know if that would be good for you this year. So I also was on the losing end, 25, 62, 50 in losses, 16, 79, 28 a win. I did hit a nice little underdog parlay that sort of bailed me out there. 883.22. My new balance is 31,914. I think this is the first time I've had back-to-back losing weeks, so I've caught your mojo here. Granted, I did go like 2 out of 3 on like 4 of my 5 parlays, which is always a blast to sort of sort through and go back and look at. But nonetheless, a new week arrives. What did you look at here in week 11? Because there were a handful of games I really, really liked. So I think I've been a little light the last couple of weeks. I'm going pretty big this week. What did you see in week 11?
Yeah, there's not as many big games this week. There's a few, like we said, the Big 12 has some big games. They're coming down to where the top 3 or 4 teams are all playing each other. But there was a few that I liked. There's a couple I think we share the same opinion on. But not a whole lot of solo picks. I put together a couple parlays, just not much I really liked yet again this week. So we'll see how it goes and, see how things narrow down as we get closer to the college football playoff.
Yeah. All right. So let's hit it up and let's head to the ACC as we always do. Well, we're going to basically start out with the bet that's going to decide my whole week pretty much here. Not really, because I got a couple other pretty big plays in there, and maybe if one of the miracle underdogs hits, it'll also cover it. But Clemson, pretty disappointing last week versus Notre Dame. I know Notre Dame's been very, very improved from what they were at the start of the year, but basically, Clemson didn't pull the trigger on switching QBs this time. I don't even know if it would have mattered all that much with the way Notre Dame built out its lead. You give up a couple interception scores, you give up a punt block score. The percentage of winning a football game with those things happening to you go very, very down. And Clemson basically had no offense. The defense I didn't think was great, but once again, you give up turnovers and blocked punts, it's hard to go. But Louisville, who's on the other end of the spectrum here, who's really found a rhythm and is closing this season really, really well. And Scott Satterfield might have saved his job here if he continues to close out this season real solid. So what do you make of this Louisville-Clemson game? I'm really big on Louisville here getting 7 points. I don't believe in this Clemson team very much. And I just think Louisville's defense is playing well, and I think we get a close game no matter what. Now, when Clemson decides to pull the trigger on the quarterback change, I might have a different feeling, but I just think Louisville's defense is playing well. We stay out of the night game in Clemson, so this 3:30 slot I think favors Louisville as a road game here. So what do you make of Louisville-Clemson?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to go along with you here in this one at first. I looked at it, and then I just kind of got a little nervous, and maybe I shouldn't, because I got nervous last week. I wanted to take Notre Dame, and I should have hopped all over that. So maybe this is another one where I should be taking the team going up against Clemson, because this Clemson team, they've looked off all year. Even in the games they've won, they haven't looked like the Clemson of late. And I don't know. Like you said, they got to find some offensive rhythm. Maybe that's with the new quarterback. Something they can't come out and fail to put points on the board earlier. This will be another long game for them. And kudos to Louisville. They're right there in it, and they're performing well. So should be a good game. I don't know. I'm still kind of holding my breath on if Clemson will drop 2 in a row like that.
Well,
they still technically have an outside shot at the playoff if the committee respects a ACC champion.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. It's just I think everybody just keeps giving Clemson the benefit of the doubt. Basically, because Clemson's been really great for, the previous 10 years before that. And if you look at it, they could have easily lost that Wake Forest game and, probably should have lost that Wake Forest game. The NC State game they played pretty well in, but it was still, a defensive hammer fight, and NC State is just the one that made the mistakes. And that one, you go back to the Syracuse game, which they narrowly pulled off. So they could easily have 3 or 4 losses on this season. And I just think this Louisville team's playing too well right now. And they could probably sneak in there and kill this victory. Like you said, they're still technically an outside shot. They win out the rest of the season. They can go, well, our only loss is a non-conference loss at Notre Dame. We've won our conference championship, blah, blah, blah. And, you start looking at that case, and even though you might not like the way they play, you got to go, well, yeah, they have one loss, non-conference loss at Notre Dame, and they've won their conference title. Now, it's just, I don't think they're very good. This Louisville game, if they can get a loss here, will sum it up. And I think even if you don't like the money line like I do, I think that's 7 points. The way these two defenses is plays, this game's sitting there for, a 16-13, 20, 14 type game here. So I really think good line here for Louisville. I'm surprised it came in this high, even after as poor as Clemson played, last week. All right, let's move to the next one. And this one I like too, but I don't like. I was very much hoping this was going to teeter in my favor, especially after the NC State loss. I had my eye on it about 3 weeks ago because I thought they might be getting plus at home. Of course. Everybody might not know, but certainly odds makers know that Wake Forest is probably the better football team than the one-loss North Carolina. It goes to about 3.5, 4, depending where you find it. I agree. I think, Wake Forest ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw the last couple weeks. 2 tough road games, going back home versus a North Carolina team whose defense is really, really poor. I look for that offense to kickstart again and really, really put points on the board. I don't know if their defense can hold, but actually you look the last couple weeks, their defense has been okay. It's been the offense that hasn't really produced points. So I'm really big on Wake here. I do wish it was like a +1, and then I might empty the bank accounts on it. Instead, I'm just putting a big wager on it. But what do you make of Wake Forest, North Carolina here?
Yeah, I was looking at this, and the number I was looking at was that points total. I think it's around 76, 77 right now.
It was at 77 today when I looked at it.
I think if it was closer to 70, I'd be all over it over. If it was 80, I'd probably be all over an under, but it's kind of right at that hard spot because I could definitely.
Me, but I can't quite pull the trigger on the under, even though every bone in my body says when something is 77, you should probably bet on the under.
Yeah, and I've seen some guys online that are saying take the over even at 77, and I find that hard to believe. But you go back and look at the history of these two with North Carolina. They have probably the most poorest defense in probably the country, and Wake's got a very potent offense, and their defense isn't great either. So should be a back and forth game, really fun game to watch, I'd say, unless we just get something really shocking like a one-sided blowout, maybe some turnovers or something. But I'd expect a high-scoring affair, and for that reason, I couldn't pick a side, especially because I went big on Wake a couple weeks ago and they let me down. So I'm not ready to quite jump on that train yet. And I'm definitely not going on North Carolina again. I think they've let me down 4 times this year.
Yeah, the thing I looked at is, when North Carolina played Notre Dame, and that was like 42-24. I think there's an outside chance this game more hits in that area than the, like Appy State, North Carolina shootout in the 60s. Granted, both are possible, but I just think Wake's probably the better team. North Carolina's been the benefit of a pretty nice schedule here. The other thing is they've basically clinched their side of the I don't know if it's the coastal or the interior, whatever their side of the ACC division is. They've basically clinched it, so this game's sort of a throwaway game for them as well, which might help them too because it has no pressure whatsoever, but I just can't foresee their defense really slowing down. Wake here, after Wake's had 2 tough games in a row, I wish the odds makers had been a little less smart and given me my +1. Wake at home, nonetheless. All right, let's go to Florida State, Syracuse here. Florida State with a really big win versus Miami. Syracuse continues to fall here. Not a huge game, but I think a pretty meaningful one. This is one that Florida State, I think, needs to sort of show that they can win. They've been able to win a handful of really nice games so far this season, but to put 2 wins in a row at Miami, then going up at Syracuse is something they probably haven't done for 4 or 5 years. Being able to put 2 solid wins together on the road versus teams. So I'm curious if they can go up into Syracuse. And I was stunned they were 7-point favorites, so I'm all on Syracuse on this one. But what do you make of this Florida State-Syracuse matchup?
Yeah, I was leaning Syracuse, but I was really impressed by what Florida State did last week, and I think while it's big that Syracuse is getting 7 at home in a place that performed really well. I think they I don't know if they've lost their momentum. I don't know. These last few weeks they've really struggled. They've played some tough teams, and Florida State seems to be playing a lot better the last couple games. So they may have some momentum coming into there and carry that huge win over rival Miami into this one. So I was a little afraid to take it. I think it's moving up to like 7.5 now. So really moving. People really like this Florida State team. So, with Syracuse's defense, maybe good to ride them in the points at home.
Yeah, I liked the +7. I will say, if you look at Florida State, the 3 losses they have are Wake, NC State, and Clemson. So, they don't really have a bad loss, on the year so far. So
big win over LSU, too.
And, a win over LSU that looks, better and better each week. So it should be an interesting game. I was all on Syracuse on here, though, getting 7 at home. I thought after playing Miami in Miami and then going up to Syracuse, that's a tough back-to-back road game. So I was pretty shocked that it was a 7-point spread. You got no straight bets in the ACC, and I'm loaded up. We're going to go first with the Golden Pinta here at Louisville. So, I will say I'm a little nervous that Clemson's going to replace their quarterback at some point in time, and I'm going to get Syracuse where I'm up 21-7 at halftime, and then I end up losing, 27-23. So I went Golden Pinta here. Louisville +7 as a just straight money. Louisville first half +4. We're going 250 on that. We're doing a little two-way bet. Louisville winning at halftime, Louisville winning at full time. +400 on that one, 125. Louisville money line +230. And Louisville first half money line plus 170. So a 5-tiered Louisville bet here.
That's 875 all on Louisville right there.
That's correct. That's 875 on Louisville. Now, I can mix and match and win a couple different ways and break even. And if we can just get the straight victory from start to finish, we can win a whole lot of money on that one. But next up, we're going Wake minus 3.5. We're going 750 on that one. We got a big bet on that one. Like I said, I feel like that one's going to end up more like the Notre Dame North Carolina game, especially with North Carolina going on the road. And then lastly, Syracuse plus a 7 versus Florida State. Have 250 on that one, and Syracuse money line plus 240 as well, 125 on that one. So we're loaded up with a lot of money on the ACC this week. Big ACC week. At least every team but Louisville is at home. So, all right, let's go to the AAC. A couple big games. One of them is tonight. East Carolina versus Cincinnati. East Carolina, an outside chance at the AAC, but mostly Cincinnati needs to win this game to sort of stay alive in the AAC with the other big game on Saturday. What do you make of this East Carolina-Cincinnati game? Can East Carolina go in there and win, or is Cincinnati going to control this? It's been a little bit of a weird East Carolina team. It's been harder to read than I thought. They probably have the record I thought they'd have, at the beginning of the season, but you never quite know which East Carolina you're getting. So it's been a little hard to bet on them all year long.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little tough going on the road, not necessarily midweek, but earlier than Saturday into a tough place, Cincinnati, who's going to play you tough. I saw this line. I didn't think it was quite enough points here to go Eastern Carolina's way. But strange things happen on these midweek games. So and East Carolina has been one of those strange teams, like you said. They've been really hot, and when they're bad, they're really bad. So it'll be interesting to see what we get here.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's where I sat. It probably wasn't quite enough for East Carolina. That's where I leaned. But it probably was a little too many for Cincinnati, where I wanted to really put money on them because, just coming off watching them versus UCF. Now, granted, that was down in Central Florida. They didn't look great. And we've seen this East Carolina, sort of step up and beat teams like Central Florida, throughout the year. So it just sort of ended up a stay away. But really, really big game Friday night tonight. And then the other big game, Central Florida goes to Tulane.
I'm excited for this.
Yeah, this one's interesting because we ended up on different sides of it. But I think we both probably could talk ourselves into either side of the game. So how did you come about wanting Tulane in this one?
I just think, I just looked at this. Tulane overall, I think, has been the better team this year. I get they're going on the road here, but I like Tulane minus the 1.5. I think their season as a whole, they've performed more consistently than UCF.
Yeah, I just, I'm looking at that one Tulane loss. Now, granted, I predicted that one, which in hindsight seems pretty stupid when you look at it as they've dominated. But they've had a couple games here where they sort of had to pull it out. They had a tough game at Tulsa last week where Tulsa isn't very good. And I'm wondering if just sort of the pressure of this ride here, because, I don't think anybody expected Tulane, even on the high side of things, where I think even in the preseason where I was like, I think Tulane could finish, fourth or fifth in the AAC. I don't think anybody was thinking they were about to make a undefeated run through the AAC with a road win at K-State. So I just wonder if the pressure's getting to them a little bit. I think Central Florida's the better team here, but like I said, they've gone into East Carolina and lost. They have a loss at home to Louisville, which actually doesn't look too bad now as it did at the beginning of the year. It's more, I think Central Florida's the better team. You think Tulane's the better team. And at 1.5, I think it's sort of perfect line where they'll get even money on sort of both sets of bettors here. And Vegas will make up off, and one side will lose a lot, one side will win a lot here. So That's the games in the AAC. We've already sort of talked about our bets, but go ahead and give us your bets for the AAC.
Yeah, I'm taking Tulane minus the 1.5. Not a huge play here, just $115 for me, as my units have shrunk down as the season goes on. But just a little bit here. I think it's going to be a good game, but I like the Tulane to get the win here.
Yeah, I'm on the other side. I like UCF plus the 1.5. I got 500 on that one, so I'm a little bit more bullish than you on this game. All right, let's go to the Big 12. I mentioned basically a semi-tournament here on the Big 12 side of things in the next couple weeks. We'll start off with Kansas State and Baylor. Baylor, a nice win at Oklahoma last week. Kansas State, it's hard to say. They were awful in that first half and then basically shut Texas out and almost completed the comeback in the second half. So, not a great game, but I don't really know how to judge it because they sort of showed in the second half they probably were the better team. If you could shut a team out for a half, especially one like Texas. So I just got scared off on this one. I know you like Baylor in this one. If that Kansas State defense comes to play, I'm a little nervous if Baylor can score, but certainly being at home, I think Baylor probably has a slight edge here. What'd you make of this game?
Yeah, I just like the momentum that Baylor's been able to build these last few weeks, starting to play a little bit more like I expected them to at the beginning of the year. And I think this Kansas State team, I guess they're still kind of in it there, even after that loss to Texas. They need some help from TCU to beat Texas this week. But I think Kansas State going on the road here to a sellout crowd at Baylor is finally getting some momentum. I think this screams Baylor big win. Kansas State, their magic that they found on offense, I don't see it coming together in this one.
Yeah, I think it's sort of what Kansas State defense shows up. Is it the one that shut out Oak State? Is it the one that shut out Texas in the second half? Or is it the one we saw, in the first half, first Texas, which was letting them gash them for, 40-yard runs at a time? Probably will determine this one. The next one is TCU, Texas. You got a bet on this one as well. I stayed away, but I will say this. I probably will be betting on TCU in the second half when that number comes up, no matter what this is. One, Texas basically, I think, has lost every second half all year long, and TCU has been a monster in the second half all year long. So I didn't want to touch the 7.5. Basically, because if Texas can get out to like a 21-7 start, I could probably get like plus 21, plus a very large money line to see if TCU can make their comeback here. And I think more than anything that maybe scared me off is Texas at home at night. I think the crowd will be fired up. And with the way TCU started, it just makes me a little nervous that it sort of ends up like the game last week where Texas got out to a big, margin versus K-State, and then basically is just holding on for dear life in the second half. It seems like that might be similar to how this game plays out, which would cover the 7.5, but I just didn't want to be behind on that big margin. So what did you make of this game?
Yeah, I had thoughts about, you had talked about waiting live in game and taking TCU when that money gets up, over 2 touchdowns here. But I just think that 7.5 is too sweet for what we're talking is a top 4 college football playoff team right now. Yeah, it's on the road, but, their offenses look pretty good for the most part. They get off these slow starts, but I like their ability to score the ball better than Texas. And, if Texas doesn't get going early, they're in trouble because they tend to, like you said, get those leads and hang on. So we'll see how it plays out. But I just thought the 7.5 was too juicy. Getting the hook and the touchdown was really nice. And I had to put a little bit on that.
Yeah, I agree. There's a danger playing the waiting game because if TCU gets off to a good start, it's going away. And I think TCU can fall behind and come back. I'm not sure Texas can fall behind and come back. I think that throws their offense totally out of whack, and TCU can just start running whatever they want. So it's a gamble to sort of wait and see if you can hit it big. But I wanted to see sort of what the atmosphere was like in Texas before I really went full bore into it. All right. What do you got bet-wise? You already went over we went over both the games you bet on. I got two different ones, but what are you looking at here in the Big 12?
Yeah, I got $215 plays. I took Baylor minus the 2.5 versus Kansas State, and like I said, TCU plus the 7.5 at Texas. Just looking forward to these Big 12 games. I think they both should be entertaining.
Well, I'm going to go with the what the hell happened Oklahoma State plus the 1.5 at home versus Iowa State because honestly, I don't know what the hell happened. They beat Texas, score 40 points, and then for the next 2 weeks, they haven't been able to score points on Kansas State or Kansas.
I think we're 3 weeks out from us saying that Oklahoma State was probably the best team in the Big 12, and now where are we?
Yeah, I honestly don't know what has happened. I get that their defense sort of gives up points. We've realized their defense has been poor basically since the start of the year. But the offense randomly going AWOL for these 2 weeks here it's been a little bit of a shock. So I think being back home, Iowa State, who's not going to score a lot of points on you. Oklahoma State sort of finds its rhythm, or their season is just totally gone in the tank, and maybe in the offseason we find out what the hell happened that caused them to basically be the best team in the Big 12 and then all of a sudden just drop off a cliff here. So Oklahoma State plus the 1.5, 250, and then I'm just going to ride my...
I was waiting to see if you were going to take this. I wanted to because as soon as I see these picks, I hear you in my head. Road game at West Virginia. Take West Virginia.
Yeah, noon road game at West Virginia. Oklahoma goes there. It's not ideal, basically, because I think everybody knows their coach is going to be fired. So I don't really know what they're playing for, but if you have a system, you ride the system, you'll see I didn't do the straight bet with the spread. That will be in my parlays. I didn't want to double up on the straight bet losses. So we got West Virginia money line plus 265, and we'll throw West Virginia in a parlay that we'll talk about later. All right, let's move to the Big Ten. I don't quite know why I put these games in here, but...
One matters for the most part.
No, I looked. Technically...
They both technically kind of matter.
Everything matters because Minnesota, Purdue, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Iowa all are...
Powerhouse of teams right there.
All are 2 and 3 losses. So... if Purdue beats Illinois, I don't quite know what the tiebreakers go to, but that puts Wisconsin, Iowa, and Minnesota back into play too, as long as they all win. So I just I assume Minnesota's winning this week. I believe they're at Northwestern or they're at a very bad team. So I assume Minnesota, their capabilities of continuing to beat bad teams and lose to every good team will continue. But Purdue, Illinois, Wisconsin, Iowa, showdown of mediocre team that will have a 30-point spread in the Big Ten championship game. I don't know. Purdue was awful last week. Illinois did their weird thing where they outgained somebody by about 400 yards and somehow lost the game, much like they did at Indiana. And Wisconsin and Iowa have gotten to the crap part of their schedule, so they've plugged away a couple wins here to make them look a little better than they did at the start of the year. So I don't know. Break down these games. Give me your thoughts. They're all pretty gross in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that Purdue, Illinois, I mean, really flip a coin. It depends on what team shows up. I think Purdue should be the better team here, but they've underperformed all year. Illinois kind of overperformed in some games and underperformed in some. So really just not a great game. But the one I really like, I like that Wisconsin, Iowa. I've got a bet on Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin has played really much improved ever since they fired their coach. They've played like one of the better teams in this division, and I think they're going to come out and dominate this Iowa team, even on the road. Yeah,
I should mention also, I check weather in games that are above the Mason-Dixon line. It's going to be a little cold and windy in Wisconsin and Iowa, so granted, I didn't grab the 35 under, but... it's certainly in play. And
Yeah, did you watch that Northwestern Ohio State game last week? That was nasty.
Yes, yes, it was. So, weather becoming a bit of a play. You also saw it play a factor, last night in the NFL game in Carolina, Atlanta. So, weather's starting to become a factor. So before you jump on to a lot of stuff, I'd look at the weather. Now, it doesn't affect these two teams because they're both bad weather teams, but there are a couple in the Pac-12 that I'd look at, one in particular where weather, I think, might play a bit of a factor. All right, let's go to Conference USA. Did I do my Big 12
You didn't
bet?
do your pick. You have your one bet.
I had my one bet. I'm going Rutgers money line plus 290 versus Michigan State. I know everybody is hoorahing the great Michigan State win, but like I said earlier, Illinois outgained them by 400 yards. It was kind of fluky that they got that win. I don't expect them to come out and really dominate Rutgers. It probably will be a gross game involving bad weather and two teams who have no offense. So 290 seemed pretty good to me. I also have Rutgers, I think, in a parlay over here as well. Conference USA, there were no real great matchup games, but we both loaded up on one team for sure. So why don't you give us your bets, and then I'll go over mine.
Yeah, I was really shocked to see this team getting this many points, but North Texas getting 6 against UAB, who's really underperformed in this conference all year. And North Texas is overachieved. I think their offense has been tremendous, and I think getting 6 points here is a huge favor. I like both the spread and the money line play here for sure.
Yeah, I'm all on North Texas as well. 6. I think UAB threw their soul at that UT San Antonio game. Got that miracle Hail Mary there at the end of the game. Still did not end up winning it in overtime. UT San Antonio won it. North Texas comes into town. Honestly, clearly, I think they're the second best team in the Conference USA. So them getting 6, I'm all over. North Texas plus 6. I got 500 on that. I got 250 on the 192 money line there. So I'd grab North Texas. Also, UAB's lost 3 in a row here. So I don't think their momentum's going to be real high. I don't think a lot of fans are going to come out after having lost 3 straight and, filling it up the other night. So I think North Texas comes in there in a good spot. Next up, Rice plus 13 versus Western Kentucky here. Now, I don't know how to explain what happened with Charlotte, especially since Western Kentucky came back and blew the doors off of them, and Rice went into UTEP and won. So I don't know. That's one of those weird little things that no one will quite understand, how Charlotte went in the road and beat a pretty solid Rice team. So I know Rice hasn't been great on the road, but I think 13 points seemed pretty extreme versus a Western Kentucky team who, I don't know how you watch these two teams play and say Western Kentucky is 13 points better. They haven't been very good all year long either. It's the only thing we're going off of, the fluky Charlotte game, because Rice has probably had the better year overall, other than the weird Charlotte game. And I just sort of write that off. So I have Charlotte plus 13, 125 on that, and then Rice money line plus 420. I got 62.50 on that one. We got differing opinions on the next. Well, I don't know about differing opinions. You'll notice I didn't take the spread, but Liberty UConn in the Independence. UConn's got 2 games here to win 1 to get bowl eligible. They got Liberty this week, Army next week. You're taking the Liberty minus 14 here. I have a bet UConn money line plus 460. I did put them in my parlays on the other side, but what do you like about Liberty here minus the 14?
Yeah, I just think this is a team Liberty outclass as well. UConn has come up and bettered some other bad teams out there. I think this Liberty team is too good, who just, coming off a big win against Arkansas. And they tend to really dominate in the games they should win, and this is one of those. So I think they're going to come out and cover this spread pretty big.
Yeah, I just think UConn's a little frisky. I think this will be a little closer than people think, especially I think Liberty will let down a little bit after their big win versus Arkansas. And, I think Utah, it's not a bet that I think UConn really will win, but I think the value of plus 460 coming off a pretty easy letdown spot where you go into the game versus Arkansas, you get all hype, it's on the road, you somehow steal that game. I don't know how, but you held Arkansas down, and then it's sort of like you take a breath and go, oh, we're going to UConn this week, no sweat, and then you probably get into the game and it's like, oh, this UConn team's kind of good. When did this happen? And all of a sudden it's a closer game than you want. So I thought 460 was pretty good value on that one. All right. Nothing in the MAC because the MAC has been midweek all week, so we'll skip that and go to the Mountain West. Decent showdown here, San Jose State versus San Diego State. San Diego State's found their legs a little bit. These two teams, along with Fresno State, are the three that are battling out to sort of get atop the other side of the Mountain West bracket. I really wanted to take San Diego State getting plus at home here straight. I caved and just threw it in my parlays because I couldn't totally trust it, but because basically the San Jose State team has been weird. They have some very weird losses, and the losses, when they win, they just win by 30 points. So I couldn't quite tell if we're going to get, the normal San Diego State 16-13 win, or we're getting San Jose State 40-10 win here. So I backed off, but what'd you make of the San Jose State, San Diego State game?
Yeah, I tell you what, the Mountain West has been a really, really weird conference this year. Really hard to predict. Not a whole lot of fun to bet on, in my opinion, just because when you think you see something, some wacky game comes out and surprises you and you lose some money. You said a little bit about Fresno. I'm shocked at their turnaround. They went from just playing terribly and they turned it around. They're looking amazing these last few weeks. But the San Jose San Diego State game, I'm like you. I lean home team here, but this is just one I can't put any money on just because I can't find enough reasons on either side to take other than maybe the home team. But that's about it.
You mentioned it. I'm going with Fresno State tonight as the bet, minus 9.5 versus our UNLV. It's big, but I was looking back, and UNLV played Air Force like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was like 42-14. With the way this Fresno State team has been playing the last couple weeks, I think UNLV still has a chance here to get bowl eligible. They got 4 wins. Their last 2 games are Nevada and Hawaii. I think that's their focus. This Fresno State game, I don't think they can win. They did play them well last year. I will say that, but I feel like they're looking the next 2 weeks. Let's beat Hawaii. Let's beat Nevada. Let's get bowl eligible. And I think that is a successful season for UNLV. We had a little fun with them, maybe winning this side of the bracket, but reality hit once that second half of the schedule hit, and they had to play a handful of the good teams in the Mountain West. But nonetheless, I thought being under that number of 10, I liked that 9.5 there for Fresno State. So I'm going Fresno State minus 9.5 on tonight's game versus UNLV. All right, Pac-12, one really nice matchup. Washington versus Oregon here. I'm curious what you think, because I really, really badly wanted to take Washington plus 13. And, basically other than that Georgia game, Oregon has literally kicked everybody's ass. I mean, the closest game the last 6-7 weeks has been like that 15-point win over who was it? Not USC, UCLA, where they dominated the whole game, and that score was actually a lot closer than the game actually was. So I really wanted to take this Washington 13, but I just with the way Washington has played on the road, and I just Oregon hasn't showed any weakness other than that Georgia game, basically. I couldn't quite grab it. I'm curious what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've reached the time of the year where we're kind of waiting on the big time Pac-12 teams to drop a game that they're not supposed to. It typically happens with the Oregons, the USCs, and the UCLAs. They have some weird ones, but Oregon is just kind of on a different level. The way they've been playing, they've just been dominating. Haven't had any close, get buys, kind of like USC has, and UCLA. They've both kind of been, playing with fire a little bit, but Oregon's just been dominating. If this game was at Washington, I'd like that 13 a lot more, but going on the road here, I don't see them really hanging with them. We've seen the way Washington's played on the road. They're just a different team.
Yeah, I think that's just I couldn't quite do it. I really I thought that 13 was high though, but I can't quite make myself grab it. This one isn't necessarily a big game, but it is interesting as Arizona goes up to UCLA, USC next week, which I think both know. I mean, there's an off chance Utah goes up to Oregon and upsets them, but, from what I've seen from that Utah defense, that would be a pretty big upset. Honestly, I think that number might be just as big next week with Utah as it is with Washington this week. So, UCLA, USC probably going to be the decider on who, moves on. But this is an interesting game because Arizona's a little spunky. I don't think Colorado is going to push USC at all. But Arizona could go in there and mess around a little bit here. Do you think UCLA's looking ahead a little bit, or they stay pretty focused? I thought that win, last week going into Tempe where they just dominated them was pretty impressive despite Arizona State, not being great. It's still a hard place to go where they've struggled.
Yeah, I think there's an outside shot at Arizona covering the spread here. I think it was around 20.
Yeah, it was like 20 and a half last I saw.
Yeah, so I think they could keep it that close. UCLA, they tend to not, be as consistent with their defense, and Arizona's got an offense capable enough to move the ball a little bit and keep it interesting. But it's like you said, UCLA could be looking ahead to the big rivalry game, and but they've been sneaky. They've just got that one loss, and people haven't been talking about UCLA as much.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing. Everybody's sort of, since UCLA lost that Oregon game, they've sort of flown out of the radar a little bit, which is probably good for them. No bets for you here. I have one. Washington State -8 versus this Arizona State team. I was speaking of games of weather. It's going to be between about 25 and 32 degrees in Pullman with sort of windy weather. I'm not sure the boys from Tempe, where it's about 80 degrees, are going to be all too kind going up to Pullman in a lost season to face this Washington State team. So I think that's a pretty good number there, Washington State 8. I look for a pretty good blowout here because Arizona State's going to step off the bus and want to step right back on the bus and go back home in this one. So Washington -8 for me. I have 500 on that one. All right, let's move to the SEC. Couple decent matchups here. I wouldn't call anything great. LSU, Arkansas. This lost a little luster last week when, whatever Arkansas's offense came out was not good. I don't know why. It basically been scoring 40 points a game all season long, then scores 19. LSU with a nice win versus Alabama here. What do you make of this LSU-Arkansas matchup?
Yeah, I think this is a big time a trap game for LSU here. I just think coming off that big win, they're talented. Their quarterback's been playing a lot better here lately. But I think this Arkansas team's better despite the loss last week. And if they can get their offense back to a little bit more normal here, it should be a pretty close game.
Yeah, I think their offense will come back this week. Or maybe they're just in their Oklahoma State phase and they're going to be bad at scoring points all of a sudden. I ended up putting Arkansas. I had it in my straight bets. I ended up throwing it in a parlay because I was a little nervous about what I saw last week. I mean, Liberty has some solid players, but it shouldn't be anything that shuts down the Arkansas offense, which has scored on much, much better defenses all year long, and then all of a sudden couldn't put any points on the board. So that's what made me a little nervous and made me pull off the straight bet for Arkansas here. But I was in about the same thinking. But certainly a big letdown spot here, chance for LSU. Next up, Alabama versus Ole Miss. I thought we'd get a benefit of a decent spread, but, I love every pundit on there that Alabama's dead. They are no longer good. And then their spread is still 13 on the road versus Ole Miss. If only, every college football team's seasons would be dead because they lose 2 games a year. Anyway, I couldn't take Alabama at the 13 number here, but I have no interest in taking Ole Miss either. So I'm curious what your thoughts were on this one.
Yeah, I'm not touched in this game. It really all comes down to what Ole Miss shows up here in, and there's really no telling. I haven't been impressed with Ole Miss much all this year. They got a decent win. I guess it was last week when I thought they were going to lose. So we'll see how they do. I don't know. I think Alabama may be able to take out some frustration and dominate this one.
Yeah,
but
I think it's likely that they cover that 13, but I'm certainly not touching it with what I've seen defensively. Now, granted, Ole Miss really hasn't been able to throw the ball all that well. They've been a running team. Yeah. So I'm not sure that's a great recipe overall. Next up, I thought this one was a little interesting here. Georgia versus Mississippi State. Georgia coming off the big win. I was a little shocked. This number was, 16.5 going on the road here. It sits in letdown territory. That's a tough place to go and play, football. And I think Miss State, can give them a little bit of trouble offensively. I don't think they'll win. I was just shocked that the number was really that big. Now, I get it. They probably can't drop it below 2 touchdowns because everybody will bet on Georgia. But I thought there was value in that Mississippi State number of 16.5 there.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I think Georgia could win this one big. I don't know. Going on the road, yeah. I still don't see a whole lot on that Georgia offense that scares me other than their freak NFL talented tight end. But their defense just makes so many plays. But that may be a challenge, like you said, the way that Leach and Will Rogers play. The check down game, the easy stuff, and that may get a little tiresome for this Georgia defense. So maybe they can make it interesting, but I'm not so sure.
Well, that's why I just, we saw Georgia pull back so quickly in that Tennessee game where they probably could have thrown up 40, and they were pretty much content at 28 and, shut it down. We don't want to cause any problems. And I just wonder if they'll do the same thing here. Now, it's a little easier to cover, a spread like 8 than it is like 16.5. So I thought there was a little value there. So what bets do you have rolling around here in the SEC this week?
Well, we already talked about the Arkansas +3 versus LSU. I like that one. I've got 115 on that. And then you're going to laugh at me here. I've gone with the homer pick. I'm taking the Tennessee. This is bounced between 21 and 20.5. I got it at 20.5. I like that, just under 3 touchdowns. But I think Tennessee needs a big show in these last 3 games. And I saw what they did to Missouri last year, just completely manhandle them with ease. And I think it's going to be pretty ugly, and Tennessee jumps up on them quick.
Well, I'm going the other way. I don't have a straight bet on it. It's in my parlay bets, but I do have the Mizzou money line plus 900. Thought there was decent value there. This Mizzou team's really, really good at defense. Not really good at much else, and certainly is very good at finding interesting ways to lose games. I don't know if I've seen the snap over the head, rough the punter, cost yourself the game maneuver, but I certainly have now, and that was certainly nice, and basically is what cost me a plus week and a minus week, was a snap over the punter's head that goes 30 yards back, and then a roughing punter, which blows the Mizzou game. But I think this Mizzou defense is really, really good. So I think it can contain teams And if you look at their games all season long, every single game is close and tight. They don't win any of those, but they're still close and tight. So I think they can maintain close and tight games. Sunbelt, there wasn't really much matchup-wise. The Troy the Troy Army matchup. Probably decent, but that's not a Sun Belt matchup. But it's interesting why teams continue to schedule weird, random, hard games towards the tail end of your conference season. Arkansas is probably wondering the same thing right now, like, why the hell did we schedule Liberty 3 weeks before the SEC season was ending? But nonetheless, what do you have here in the Sun Belt bet-wise?
I'm just going to ride this one that it's brought me about 3 wins this year. I'm going to take App State -1, basically a pick 'em at Marshall. This Marshall team's still getting credit for a win over Notre Dame. They're okay. They kind of hung with Coastal, but I still got my bet in that one, and I think App State's going to come in and take care of business over Marshall here. So got $115 on App State -1.
Well, I will say that win over Notre Dame looks more and more impressive for Marshall. It's one of the 3 they're going to have on the year. But nonetheless, I didn't have anything in the Sun Belt. I was tempted to sort of take Troy, but then I was like, yeah, that's too weird a game and too weird a spot. They're basically 2 wins away from going to the Sun Belt championship game. If they get behind in that Auburn game, I feel like they'll go, what the hell do we care about this? Let's make sure we're all healthy to close out the Sun Belt season and try to get a Sun Belt title here. Because I certainly think there's with Coastal probably locking up that side, Troy has a pretty solid chance to, maybe win this Sun Belt League. So I ended up backing off out of that game. All right, let's go to our parlays. I got three-team parlays this week. Basically in tiers. Big spreads getting plus, medium spreads getting plus, and small plus. So we'll start on the big one. We're going Nebraska plus 31 versus Michigan. Nebraska, a little like this Missouri team. Very good at losing close games.
In weird ways.
So 31 just seemed a little extreme, even if it is in Michigan. I foresee them losing, but maybe 28-14. 31 just seemed a bit extreme. Missouri plus 20.5 and Mississippi State plus 16.5 is one. Then we'll go into the mediums. Rutgers plus 10, West Virginia plus 8, UConn plus 13.5. And then we'll go to the smalls. Kansas plus 3.5, San Diego State plus 2.5. And we'll go Arkansas plus 3.5. So those are the three-team parlays. We'll see if we can hit one of those. I know you got a couple parlays. What do you got this week?
Yeah, I got a few, and we'll start with my upset parlay. Just 2-team moneyline upset for plus 90. I've got North Texas and Arkansas to win. Got 57.50 on that. 2-team spread parlay. I took Liberty and Wisconsin. These are my 2 confident picks this week. I got 230 on that. And then I got a little teaser, plus 6-point teaser on TCU, Florida, and Baylor, making TCU plus 13.5, Florida -2, and Baylor plus the 3.5. And I've got 230 on that, and that's plus 180 on that teaser.
All right. So those are our college football bets for the week. We're a little late this week, but some of us had a migraine and couldn't stare at a screen for a couple of days there. So we weren't really capable of staring at a screen until about 4 this morning. So also I'd go by these bets. They were being made at 4 this morning after a 2-day migraine episode where I couldn't look at screens. So we're either going to win a lot of money this week or lose a lot of money this week. But be sure to like and subscribe. Our NFL show is coming. We'll try to get back on track with winning daily. Like I said, I couldn't stare at the screen for a couple days there, which sort of made it hard to make some bets. And we'll try to get our last soccer one in tonight before the World Cup. You'll certainly want to come back. Dynamite David is going to be with us on our World Cup preview, his first World Cup betting experience. It should be exciting.
May want to go into the same strategy as college football. Just fade all my picks.
This may be your bag here. Yeah. You'll be all on the World Cup. So that'll come out next Wednesday, our World Cup preview. You'll be wanting to see that. So like, subscribe, don't miss any of the great content coming. That's our show, and we're out.
Greenlight Network presents Football Time.